Nearly 40% of pediatric urology consults consist of lower intake dysfunction, although the true incidence in Indian outpatient department is not known. But at least in our experience, nearly one third of them, they basically constitute bladder bowel dysfunction in various forms. And this is basically the problem of elimination. When one elimination problem is there, this is usually associated with the elimination of the other system. And in 2014, when the standardization of the terminology was established and the terminology of dysfunctional elimination syndrome was basically eliminated, and this was replaced with bladder bowel dysfunction. As the name itself denotes that both the GI system as well as the genitourinary systems are involved, as both are interrelated, which we will be discussing in the coming subsequent slides. And why we are becoming so familiar to this BBD. And if we have seen that over the last 3 decades, all of a sudden we were talking of Hinman syndrome, dysfunctional elimination syndrome, Fowler syndrome, and now this is called as BBD. And there are some specific regions why things are basically emerging so apparently. And there are specific regions. This could be the price which we are paying on at the rate we are getting modernized, or the rate of industrialization which is happening across the world. And this has been seen, there are some certain factors which have been found to be responsible and giving rise to a higher prevalence of BBD in the current children. This could be on account of late age of toilet training, over dependence on the diapers, and smaller in the nuclear families. There are no caretakers for the small kids. Most of the time the kids are staying in the crashes, or they are being handed over to the familial aides. And both the parents are young and both are working. And the children who are going, when they are alone, they are usually either busy in Android, computers, TV, and the video games. And on the parents, whenever they are available with the kids, they are usually under the performance stresses at the workplaces. So the etiopathogenesis, it has been seen that it has all 3 components: embryological, anatomical, and the functional. Interactions between bladder and the bowel are seen, and it is seen that the lower genital tract is tied to GI tract on the basis of same embryogenic origin, which is endodermal in origin, and up to 6 weeks gestation, urogenital sinus and the hide gut empty into a common cloaca. So how much common origin of these 2 organs? Not only they are neighbors, but even they embryologically they enjoy so much similarities. Another reason is the functional. This is the effect of the neighborhood. Whenever there is a large fecolid in the rectum, which keep irritating the rectum because of over distension, and the nociceptor receptors, they are put into the action. And not only this, the effect of load compresses the posterior wall of the bladder, which in turn changes the physiological neural stimuli of the bladder and the pelvic floor muscles, which in turn gives voluntary and the involuntary pelvic floor contractions. And that is why these children, they have a problem with non-relaxation of the external sphincter as well as the pelvic floor muscles when they go to pass the urine. And as we are aware, this is the normal maturation cycle, and this is the bladder flick, this is the EMG activity, and we start voiding. The EMG almost becomes silent. While in cases of BBD, this is never silent. This is intermittently bursting here. We see the EMG activity. This is all effect of, because there is a compression of bladder, which is giving overstimulus of the nerve stimuli into the genitourinary system, pelvic floor muscles, and the external sphincters. And moreover, when we move forward, so similarly, the evaluation is planned keeping in mind that the BBD patient will voluntarily contract the pelvic floor muscles, and there is not only embryological as well as the anatomical and the functional interactions between bladder wall, bladder and the bowel. There is so much overlapping of the symptoms. So you cannot BBD case categorically say that this is purely a functional order, because there will be so much overlaying of symptoms because of the anatomical cause of bladder outlet obstruction, a neurogenic cause which may be sometimes occult also, may not be severe over, although the BBD which is purely functional also. So identification of a possible anatomical and the neurogenic source has to be ruled out. So based on that, you have to at least rule out these two conditions, anatomical and the neurogenic cause, before you label it as a functional cause, that is BBD. So accordingly, one has to plan history, physical examination, and choose the investigative batteries, so that we do not over-investigate or under-investigate the children with bladder dysfunction. So history has to be planned accordingly. One need to make a note of right from the developmental milestones, and toilet training, as we understand, is purely a part of milestones, and which varies from child to child, from families to families also. And to be specific, out of this set of points, we have to give a special consideration to the wording schedule, bowel habits, diet and the fluid intake, and that has to be recorded in the form of bladder and the bowel diaries. And you have to take into the considerations of specifically a psychological or neuropsychiatric comorbidities which have been seen to be associated in nearly 20 to 30% of these kids. And this is a simple indigenously made bladder diary, bladder and the bowel diary, which is available in the SGP GIA+ Pediatricology portal, and this has been developed in form in both local Hindi language as well as English language, and one need to fill it accordingly. The time, fluid intake, urine output, and other events like urge incontinence, as well as the leakage of feces if any time felt, or if the child is constipated, that also be to be recorded accordingly, like this. So there are more criteria for more objective assessment of evaluation of BBD and follow-up, and various scores have also been developed, such as dysfunctional voiding symptom score, as well as pediatric urinary incontinence quality life score, and that may help not only in charting out the treatment, charting out the severity, as well as monitoring the treatment and follow-up of these kids. As I initially said, that the psychological overlay may be found nearly 40 to 50% of these kids. So it is always very important to have a specific evaluation in terms of child psychology, which can be done in the form of child behavioral checklist or short screening instrument for psychological problem in any races. These are all available, and they should be looked into and given to the child to go through it and to complete it by the evaluating clinician. And the physical examination basically starts with the study of the gait as well as the posture. There are certain specific postures these children with dysfunctional voiding or BBD they acquire while attending OPDs or while they are at school or even at home. And specifically, it has been called as the Vincent curtsy. There may be many other presentations also, like in male, there may be pinching of the genitalia, pinching of the prepuce or the penis also is one of the symptoms when this patient suffer from this condition. And the physical examination has to be planned accordingly. One has to start right from the abdominal examination. You have to look for the bladder lump. You have to also palpate the abdomen to find out the loaded bowel, muscle tone, mass, or any other abnormality. And similarly, the back has to be examined to find out any hair tuft, a sinus, irregularities in the buttock or the contours, as well as any curvature in the spine, visible spine. Genital examination has to be done. Examine meatus, because sometimes a tight meatus may also give similar symptoms. And also examine the female genitalia to rule out any urogenital sinus anomaly, as well as any labral adhesions also. And finally, one has to do a focused neurological examination in the form of lower extremity scan, deep tendon reflexes gait, perineal and the anal sensation, rectal tone, anocutaneous reflexes, and bulbocavernosus reflexes, just to rule out that there is no occult neurological condition which might be missed, and we are treating child only for functional causes. Now, after the clinical examination, similarly, now we get an idea that this functional or anatomical or the urogenic causes. Accordingly, we have to plan or choose the investigating tool. Obviously, we all urological evaluation, they start with urinalysis, urine culture and sensitivity. And to be specific here, one has to maintain the bladder and the bowel diary. Specifically here has to maintain at least one of the stool chart, and here I have taken the example of Bristol stool chart along with the uroflowmetry and a pelvic floor ultrasonography and BCUG if there is a history of recurrent urinary tract infection or there is some upper tract dilatation. So occasionally MRI or urodynamics might be needed in selected cases. So uroflowmetry is a simple outpatient test which can be done easily, and most of the time in most of the centers it is available. Different patterns will be available here. This is the common bell-shaped curve which is available in the normal setting, and other findings which may be the staccato, which is usually the common finding in cases of BBD. Second may be interrupted. Interrupted means when it is touching all the time to the baseline. While in staccato, there are some irregular fluctuations throughout the voiding. Although the flow is continuous, here the flow is interrupted. With every attempt, it touches to the baseline, and then a nib attempt makes the nib flow. And second and third may be the mixed, a combination of staccato as well as interrupted. See here, it is a staccato here, then interrupted, then again staccato. But still, since I say that this is because of non-relaxation of the external sphincter, so the best way of getting a uroflowmetry is to put end surface EMG, so that when you do a flowmetry, you also study the activity of the external sphincter to prove your point that the child is suffering from the BBD. Ultrasonography gives lot of information in the form of pre and the post void urine. A bladder thickness more than 5 mm is usually pathological, suggestive there is some problem in the outlet. This may also show a loaded rectum. If it is more than 3 cm, also there is some colonic transit problem. And finally, the PVR, if it is more than 20%, it also says abnormality. Some people take it as a 10%. BCUG, if there is a history of repeated UTIs or there is a upper tract dilatation on ultrasonography, it is always recommended, and this may show many times a dilated posterior urethra, what has been called as spinning top deformity. Bristol stool chart, there are many childhood constipation is common and almost always functional without an organic etiology. Various stool assessment instruments have been developed. The Bristol stool form scale and its modifications are frequently used in clinical practice as well as research, and nearly from 3 to 5 they are considered as the normal consistency, and if type 1 and type 2 are there, then they have to be given due consideration and makes an important part of BBD. Management accordingly has to be planned, and this has to be a global approach and should not include symptomatic treatment, and this is in the form of inverted prism, what I have been practicing over last 1 decade, and nearly 60 to 70% they need urotherapy and respond it. Part of it may need some assistance of some addition of anticholinergics, and 20 to 30% those who do not respond to urotherapy and a combination of pharmacotherapy, they may go for more, they may need little more effort in the form of neuromodulation or application of botulinum toxin. So this is how we plan urotherapy in these kids. When the clinical examination is inconclusive, that we do not find anything on investigation, also anatomical neurogenic, and we narrow down our diagnosis to BBD. We bladder examination of bladder diary. Here we start here and educate the child about the normal maturation cycle always. And unless the child understands what is normal and abnormal, it will be very difficult to train child in cases of BBD here. And the child must be encouraged to void in a scheduled period, and time voiding should also be inculcated into these kids, and encouraged to void on a schedule of every 2 to 3 hours. And it is preferably to give a vibrator, a time less with vibrator watch, or time older children can use their phone or tablets timers. And time voiding is recommended only while the child is awake to develop the regular voiding pattern. Fluid and diet modifications has 2 parts, and it has to be executed in the form of water has to be given in moderate amount, evenly distributed fluid, and I usually prescribe in the dose of 30 ml per kg. The kids who are staying, most of the kids are staying indoors, and they do not need more, because this is usual understanding in the families that if there is a kidney or bladder problem, give more fluid. And that basically exhausts the kidneys as well as the bladder and precipitates things more adversely. And also avoid irritants like coffee, tea, cola, and the citrus, which also acts as a diuretics in these kids. And those who are constipated, the bowel program, this is again indigenously developed bowel program, which is also available at pediatric urology portal of SGPGIMS, already developed in both the local language as well as in English. And this consists of most of the locally available fruits which are almost perennially available. They can be given to increase the fiber content and of the diet. And the main component of the treatment for constipation include educate what do we mean by constipation, and basically what are the diets which are leading to or precipitating constipation. And finally, once the child starts, then we start giving this fibrous diet, then disinfection in the form of some laxatives, and prevention and the reaccumulation of the feces, and finally the follow-up. And those who are not responding to this indigenously made dietary modifications, laxatives can be given, and I usually give this polyethylene glycol, which usually works in cases of when there is an infection of the stool, and most of the kids, they respond in a period of 4 to 6 weeks, and later on they can be maintained easily on the dietary modifications. I am not very happy with the this lactulose, because the palatability of this compound is little less in smaller kids. And we should also instruct these children not to take too much chocolate, chips, red meat, and spicy and the fried foods, which is usually available these days as canned materials. And also advise not to take too much foods high in refined carbohydrates, such as cookies and the cakes. And these all handy charts should be given to families, so that because you can manage the LUTD, but it is very difficult to manage the constipation in these children. And moreover, the most important part of this is, along with the potty training, we have to have pelvic floor exercises as well as the biofeedback, because it is not only a constipation, it is just because of the voluntary or the involuntary contractions of the pelvic floor or the external sphincters. So we have to advise that there should be a proper posturing, very important. There should be proper arrangement for the defecation within the house also, and even in the school should also make some necessary arrangement to find out. And while in the toilet training, there are various methods to toilet train, but I personally prefer which is quite common in India, is the assisted infant toilet training or the elimination communication. This is quite common in India, even in China and many other Asian subcontinent also. There are many benefits of this technique: reduced cost of the diapers, less environmental pollution, and increasing parent-child child bonding also. And I'm sorry to put this image because this is also showing the new digital India, and that is not the right way of training the kids for the toilet. And finally, the PP, this pelvic floor exercise, this also needs some kind of biofeedback also in these children. And biofeedback is basically a technique where you can use to learn to control your natural activities. And training of related physiological events, relaxation exercise may be monitored and feedback by electrical processor. And these electrical processors may be in the form of auditory stimuli, in the form of visual, or even it may be in computerized stimuli, where the child is made to learn the normal physiological response. Normal physiological response is that you sit comfortably on the toilet seat and relax your perineum and the external sphincter and pass the urine. And this is how you have to train the child. And there are various ways of pelvic floor exercises which can be given. Ready-made charts are also available in most of the outpatient department. Those who are running pediatric logical clinic, they should be given some time to make them understand to the parents as well as to the child, so that they can exercise this at home also. And those children who are having features of urge or urge incontinence in the form of overactive bladder, they may need some addition of anticholinergics. These are the list of various anticholinergics which have been given. Although the level of evidence of this is low, because most of the time you have to dependent on urotherapy rather than on pharmacotherapy. Though nearly 70% of the patients, they respond to urotherapy or the behavioral modifications, and 20 to 30% those who do not respond, they may need some neuromodulation, and which is in the form of either stimulation of the nerve or deactivation of the nerve through some external stimuli in the form of implants or with the help of pulse. And this is one of the picture of our patient which is receiving neuromodulation in the form of posterior tibial nerve stimulation, and which basically acts through the retrograde stimulation of the sacral nerve plexus, and ascending text goes to the hypothalamus and controls the bladder overactivity. And similarly, it can also be done on the surface for the sacral nerve stimulation. And usually the implants for BBD are not recommended unless there is some neurogenic element for that. And those who do not respond even to neuromodulation, pharmacotherapy or urotherapy, obviously they may need more invasive therapy in the form of Botox. Botox has dual role. It can be given to the bladder to treat detrusor overactivity as well as to the external sphincter, and this has been seen. Once you give into the external sphincter, this breaks the vicious cycle and the recovery is faster. The child who has been doing already the pelvic floor exercises, being trained on biofeedback, and if you give Botox, this sometimes works wonders. So this may be one of the things which can be tried when other things have failed. And this is one of the example, 5-year-old female which had straining on micturition with recurrent UTI, also had constipation, and you see almost the interrupted uroflow. And this is the EMG done at the time of this evaluation. You see, she had detrusor overactivity as well as severe EMG burst here at the time of voiding also, and the Botox was given. And the Botox was given for Cordant, which can be given cystoscopically or percutaneously also in the female. It is not very difficult. Rather, cystoscopically is little more difficult to give in female, and you can give percutaneously, paraurethral plane. And then this was the effect of uroflowmetry. After this got stabilized after the application of the Botox. So I think I end my talk with this, and thank you all.